to the IATA Asia Pacific Digital Cargo Webinar 2022. My name is David Wee and will be the host for this webinar. I would like to first thank all of you for taking time off for your busy schedule to join this webinar today. This is the second session of the Digital Cargo webinar. Last week, we invited guest speaker from CCN to share the importance of data collaboration, and my IATA colleague share the latest digital cargo standards, one record, interactive cargos, as well as new solutions developed from our hackathon. Similarly, in today's webinar, we will invite the industry expert to speak on digital cargo topics, and we'll be sharing IATA digital solution developed to support you in your digital automation and journey. So once again, welcome. And so today we have the honor to invite two guest speakers. Mr. Wasim Gabic is a senior information system officer at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNTAD for short, where he worked for the automated system for custom data AC CODA program, and he has 15 working years working experience in the technical field of customs automation, and he's presently leading the technical coordination of the performance measurement and cargo solution for the AC CODA program. On my right, Mr. Radish Menon heads product management and strategy for IBS, offering in the airline cargo solutions line of business. In this current capacity, he is responsible for short and long-term product goals, competitive benchmarking, product roadmap, and innovation practice. It is also responsible for the product community model. He has over 16 years of experience in the air cargo and logistic business systems. Radesh played a pivotal role in conceptualizing and developing the blueprint for the IBS new generation product line for air cargo management. Well, I'd like to draw your attention to the competition law guideline. This webinar is being conducted in full compliance with antitrust and competition law. A discussion on pricing, charging mechanism, allocating markets, customers, and suppliers or agents are prohibited. The agenda is shown on this slide. I do want to draw your attention to the Q&A session. We will have two Q&A sessions, one session in the middle and the other at the end of presentations. Your microphone and video will be switched off during the presentation, and we will turn them on only during the Q&A session. Please also take note that this session will be recorded. Right, so coming up next, we will have our guest speaker, Wasim Gabic, Senior Information Systems Officer, UNTAD, to speak on the importance of standardizing exchanges of trade data and how IATA and UNTAD partnership can help to enhance efficiency of data exchanges. So over to you, Wasim, if you may take over control.
Thank you very much, David. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on the globe. On behalf of the AC CODA program, I would like to thank, of course, our partners, IATA, for this excellent opportunity to share with you one of our successful implementation for electronic manifest and airports digitization within customs authorities. David, you will have the control on the slides so that I can go through of it if you don't mind.
Yes,
okay.
Sure. No problem. Just give me a minute. Let me bring up the slides.
Okay, we can go through the second slide. Yes, so I will first quickly introduce the ASICUDA program and show our solution with IATA through the airport disease digestions. We will go gradually through the enhancement and how we succeed to connect the airline industry and all the cargo stakeholders to customs. What are the advantages the ASICUDA solution brought in terms of trade facilitation? And finally, we will discuss about new perspective that you can get and acquire when you enjoy your solution and get the best of it. Next slide. So ASICUDA program stands for Automated System for Customs Data. It's a program under the governance of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. We provide technical assistance and develop advanced software application for customs authorities and government agencies. We are continuously providing flexibility, creativity, innovation, reliability, and of course, security to achieve e-government and e-custom solution. And these fundamentals cannot be achieved with old-fashioned legacy systems. Next slide. What makes actually ASICUDA very special he is the strong and the diversity that we have acquired through the 4 decades. We have 40 years of experience in optimization and trade facilitation. We have been this last 4 decades re-engineering a new solution with a new technology. So we are about 150 experts worldwide in more than 100 countries in the globe. And we have many contributors that support the program in our digitization journey. Next slide, please. So as you can see on the map, so ASICUDA is being implemented in over 100 of countries through the all continents. So wherever you go from Asia, Pacific Islands, Middle East, Africa, America, and Caribbean, you can always hear about the electronic solution with the ASICUDA. Next. Okay. So one of the most important key success for customs duties and clearance is that the process starts with the manifests. ASICUDA, as you can see in these pictures, go through all the parts of customs clearance from declaration, processing, payment, transit. But one of the most important part is the cargo manifest. Without the cargo manifest, you cannot do all your controls, again, what you can declare. And of course, the cargo manifest is the first key, is the part that requires to be submitted for customs on time. So without submitting the electronic manifests, airway bills and manifests and everything related on time, customs cannot assess and provide the right risk assessment. So that's why it's one of the most important key in the customs process. The challenge becomes very much higher for the airline part, especially when you have a short connection with bigger consignments. Imagine you have 40 minutes to declare more than 100 airway bills, and then it becomes very challenging and leads to many mistakes through the manual capture. David, next slide, please. So the solution that we brought to avoid such bottlenecks to happen started with our partnership with IATA since 2012. Next slide, David. At that time, so we started the cargo XML exchanging through IATA Edifact in Seychelles, and despite it was based on Edifacts, we have seen that the system was really improving, and of course through the first solution reduced considerably the time of processing. So the communication at the time were just based on email exchanges, and the clearance process was shortened. So everyone wanted to go through the solution. In the beginning, there was only one airline complying with this solution, and they gained the business. The other airlines have noticed that they were losing the business because they had lots of delay compared to others, and everyone at the end started complying. Since that time, we thought with IATA, we signed the MOU. Next slide, David. So by that time, in 2015, we signed the MOU with IATA to implement the solution now based on the cargo XML formats, and to take the best of it. XML technology provides lots of flexibilities, and of course allows many different systems to communicate each others. And of course, this solution was an asset for the cargo parts. We started the solution the first time in 2017 in Jamaica, and just followed with Angola. Next slide. So for the time being, we have many countries implementing the cargo XML solution. Angola, Lebanon. In Africa, we have Uganda and Rwanda, who successfully implemented the cargo XML solution. And a few weeks ago, we had also on board Bangladesh, that I would like to congratulate, by the way. We had Barbados, and we have many projects under discussion, such as the CARICOM project, joining 14 countries to have one single hub for the air cargo exchanges based on the IATA XML filings. We have also in Europe many projects coming, such as the Kosovo, Albania, and there are also many projects on board. Next slide. So the solution basically is quite simple. We have actually two main that exchange with the Asikuda World System, basically airlines and freight forwarders. We have 4 messages that we exchange with the stakeholders. The flight manifest, the XFFM, the XFWB for master airway-based houses, XFZB, and of course, Asikuda will always answer back to the airline industry through the XFNM, the message responses, or through the error reports. Our communication with the airlines and state reporting is done through web services, which are real-time solution. And of course, we didn't want to change the airline concept based on the email broadcasters, so it is secured in Asikuda. Basically, the airlines, they have the XFFM, the XFWB, and some house. And from the other side, we have the freight forwarders and express operators that share with us the house airway bills. Next slide, David. Yes, you can go through the next one as well. So now let's discuss just how we can get this system enhancement. First of all, when you get this real-time messages, we allow it to have a kind of the interactive dashboard in Asikuda World. This dashboard is tailored for both airlines and customs, so they can refine their research, their daily research, to see the daily flights, what was accepted in the system, what was rejected. They can also target the specific airline or specific status, and the dashboard is also interactive, provides many options, such as viewing the message that has been sent to the airline, the acknowledgement or the message responses, the errors, the manifest itself, or the airway bills. Next slide, David. So in addition to this quick and easy follow-up, it is very important to underline that we need to connect and we need to synchronize all the stakeholders together. So once you have these messages in the system, now we have capacities in Asikuda that we alert customs brokers and airlines that whenever the manifest is registered, so customs brokers they can go through customs clearance. So one of the examples is that we broadcast this message registration alerts through the community. Next slide. Yeah, in addition to that, so the solution can provide also continuous follow-up. So we can have good statistics for the management. The left pictures shows was taken from Angola 6 months after we roll out the CXML IATA files. The lines in green shows the error messages that we received, and as you can notice, it is a horizontal line. We succeed since the beginning to understand and to check with the airline one by one what were the bottlenecks for them when they got error messages through the exchanges, and we managed through this continuous follow-up to make it stable. And pictures showing the other hand in terms of quantities, how many manifests we succeed to automate within just 3 months. It's over 700 manifests and more than 12,000 airway bills for houses and masters. Next slide, David. Yes, and of course, when you have this connection established, and when you have now the CXML messages, IATA messages, one of the advantages of the CXML format is the data inside, and this is very important. It's not just a matter to exchange with the airline. Also, the accuracy of the data is very important for the customs authority. And we succeed in Asikuda to focus on some of the bulks, some of the fields that we found in the IATA format, so that we can also implement WCO recommendation to go through goods categories. So now in the system, we are able actually to categorize waybills from category 1, category 2 for express courier, category 3 for simplified declaration, and so on. And the express waybills can be highlighted with the special colors in the system, so that they are proceeded and they are processed priority for customs. Next slide, David. So yes, as I said, now thanks to these fields, also customs, they are able also to establish a new risk management system for cargo. They can target the HS compliance. They can check every box, and they can, of course, assess its politic for the system and for the risk part. So we have now the data set that provides all the data, and for those that have express highlights, they can go through the system easily. And once you are able to apply risk at cargo level, of course, when it is time to do and to go through the customs clearance, then it is just a matter of document check and sometimes have the straight release of the goods. Next slide, David. So, of course, if I can summarize in the next slide, what are the advantages and the key benefits, David? So, of course, we are talking about the trade facilitation. So there are less human interventions. It is a faster process. It is more accurate and more detailed mechanism that we provide to customs and for the airlines. The data and the information on the right time. Manifests are available also for imports and exports. We have considerably reduced the the time and the costs. If I take the example in Seychelles, we had flights at 2 the morning from Sky Cargo, and other times since the flight takeoffs, we had it in Seychelles customs ready to be cleared and registered by the local agents. So we have also good reductions and clearance times for the accelerated customs procedures, especially for perishables, emergency, and it is really important to have the system and the information time. Express operators for the first time were involved, and airway bills are now automatically cleared. You send the file, you have it already cleared in the system, and you can print the release order from the system. Submission and clearance before arrival now is possible, and it will provide, of course, for customs brokers more flexibility goods. Next slide. Of course, by avoiding the manual capture, also we avoid lots of bottlenecks in good clearance. The manifest is the first step. Again, without the manifest, you can get the second part. The time loss are considerably reduced with the delays. Also, when you exchange CXML files, you avoid errors of data captures, and you have the accuracy of the data. We were facing before the CXML exchanges many brokers unable to submit their declaration on time, which also affects them in terms of fines, in terms of release of the goods, and the increase of the costs importing the goods. Next slide, David. Of course, now once you get as I said all these exchanges, we can push the button, we can go in higher steps. Now we are succeed to go through the WCO goods categories, which is the first, as it is the first customs management system that provides such solutions thanks to the IATA CXML files. Now we can have the documents and references straight away. We can have the non-dutiable goods for the category 2. And of course, now for category 3, which is meant for simplified declaration, can also be processed aside. Next slide, David. As you can see on the picture, so we have like the express release that you can print. Also an express generators that automatically generates the single administrative document to the simplified declaration for the express courier straight away from the waybills that meant are for category 3. Next slide, David. And of course, to summarize, category 1 and 2 are automatically cleared by the customs systems. The express release is available for waybills level. Express operators now, they can have also a dashboard to follow this CXML files, and they can also follow their waybills. ASYCUDA accelerates the quick release for specific goods, meaning that items arrive at their destination quicker. You know, now by we have more and more orders through packaging and through express operators, and of course this will impact the business community. For customs, ASYCUDA will also dictate of the goods clearance processes, and also the continuous alerts and the notification for customs can also draw their attention when even if we provide the trade facilitations, the risk level is not reduced. Customs can always have an eye on what is being communicated, what was being automatically cleared, and so on. Next slide, David. Yes, the implementation of the CXML solution with IATA is done through a very detailed roadmap and strategy with the customs authorities. Next slide, David. So basically, with the IATA, UNCTAD will do the necessary coordination for the country. We go through the assessment analysis, we prepare the environment, we go through Of course, after that comes the awareness sessions that we will provide for the airlines, forwarders, express operators, and customs officers. Once the capacity building sessions are done, then we can engage the solution for banking, and then of course the rollout can be very smooth. So this steps you can go through it later on when you will get a copy of these presentations. Next slide, David. Yes, as I said, finally, just to summarize, once you have files, detailed data set of the way bills on time, you have your risk management system established, you have your express facilitation established as well, then you can think for global solutions. A global solution, of course, can be at regional level, such as COMESA for Africa, SACO, or in the Asia region. Non-ASICUDA countries can also be part of the solution. The better risk management that you get, the less risk you can have with your neighbors and other countries. So now we are thinking to establish these kinds of cargo hubs where it will also be a good facilitations for the airlines. So no need to submit it twice for both two countries. Your files, whenever you broadcast for the hub, it is automatically dispatched for the right parts. So this solution is a scalable and secure cloud-based platform that can involve multiple customs authorities and many airlines as well. Next slide. Just I wanted to thank you for your attention, and of course I will remain for you later on for the question and answers. Thank you very much, David. Over to you.
Thank you, Wasim, for the insightful sharing. So coming up next, we'll have our guest speaker, Radish Banan, VP of Head of Product Management and Strategy, iCargo, IBS Software, sharing with us how digitalization is driving the air cargo industry forward. Over to you, Radish.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to share my screen. Just let me know when you can see it. All right, great. Thank you. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, IATA, for giving me the opportunity to speak at this conference, this digital conference. And what I thought today will be that I can give you a few. I thought I can give some experiences from what we have been doing in this space, and especially working with many of our customers in live projects related to the big topic of digitalization. So just as by way of introduction, my name is Rajesh Menon. I head product management and strategy for cargo products in IBS Software. So we are a vendor of software products for the aviation industry, travel, transportation, logistics industry in general, specifically in aviation and specifically in air cargo as well. There's a little bit about us which we can put at the end. So we'll get straight to the topic. So what we, if you look at, just a little bit of things into what happened in the previous year or in the couple of years. So during the pandemic, I think the industry and the world itself shifted so much in terms of what it was used to performing earlier and what it has actually started to perform as during and as we come out of the pandemic as such. First and foremost, I think we should all give ourselves a good pat on the back because this was a period in which there was a very strong, exceptional performance by the cargo industry in general, especially in the context of the aviation industry itself, because this is basically what kept it afloat and also had an impact on the sustainability of this industry as such. This period also saw a shift of expectation, primarily driven by customer expectations or a shift in buying behavior, especially because of the need for customers to shift away from traditional retail into getting more into e-commerce and things like that. So the customer expectations as such from logistics shifted quite a bit. And this was reflected also in the kind of customer expectations that were getting into the primary service providers, which is airlines, airports, ground handling agents, and so on and so forth. So this was a big shift in something which the industry had not seen before, and this also led to the whole idea of how we can get into more of innovative thinking and capability centered around things like digitalization. The third big thing that happened was I think the collective industry realized the need for us to have tailored offerings. And by tailored offerings, I mean specialized products and processes which will help to deliver very specific kind of flows for specific types of shipments, especially the sensitive type of shipments which we saw being transported heavily during the pandemic, like vaccines or medical kits and so on and so forth. And finally, is about market disruptions. While the air cargo industry has stayed relatively stable in terms of the model that we see quite a large number of disruptions, especially in areas like in our adjacent industry in the large ocean carrier space, actually making foray into the air cargo space, and also several other parts like the e-commerce, the large e-commerce companies also trying to get into the space. And this also is a cause for the industry to pause and think on how we should actually move ahead with this kind of a business. Now, if you were to look at what should be the key drivers, or what should we take away from this? What should be our key learnings? First and foremost, I think there is now a need, and there is a mindset shift that has happened through the pandemic, where there is a greater respect and a greater strategic view towards cargo itself. But I think there is a need for us to ensure that this goes on even after the pandemic. As we see all the capacity coming back into the industry, there is a need for us to continue to provide that kind of value back into the industry that we serve, and for cargo to remain relevant and remain important in the overall scheme of things. The second is that as we see more capacity coming in, there is a need for the airlines and the air cargo industry in general to start thinking about revenue and yield and how we can keep it at the level, or at least near the levels, the heightened levels that we see today, and adding up to the whole point about profitability as such. And finally, the point is about now that this whole thing is in motion, about how we are trying to transform our industry, especially by taking it into the modern times, by digitalizing our processes and the way our key focus areas need to shift towards digitalizing our digital journey in this industry itself. So in today's session, we will be looking primarily at the third point to see what are those things that we can look at as options, which will ultimately help the first two buckets as such. And how do we actually turn digitalization into a business important or a business-centric thing which actually delivers value to the entire supply chain and to the organization as such. Now, as a service provider, we spent a lot of time in the initial stages of when this whole digitalization conversation was going on how can we enable this industry to go digital. And as a typical service provider, as a technology company, our starting point was always on technology as such. So we were looking at ways and means by which we can actually impact this whole thing by leveraging on technology. Now, it turned out there's a huge amount of possibilities out there. There's a huge amount of potential. There's so many technologies available which can provide a lot of new ways of working. and also provide tools to help impact various parts of the business. We looked at the entire chain, right from the beginning of the shipment life cycle to the very end in terms of billing and accounting, and we identified a huge amount of places where we can positively impact. But I think the critical point here is that while these are all possibilities, while these are all things that can be done, the important question that we need to find an answer to is how do we impact the business in a positive sense? How do we improve the capability of the fundamental business itself to deliver value to the end customer? And if you don't have an answer to that question, all of this just becomes technology. And in that sense, it's just nothing more than an innovation project, something that you can put on a showcase. It doesn't really deliver value. So then how do you focus all of this knowledge, all of what we have learned from other industries, what they've done with digitalization, and apply it into the context of air cargo? Now, if you were to simplify this entire thing, it boils down to few important things which we should look at as levers which enables us to use digital to transform our business. So if you take from the very top, if you were to look at it, so look at air freight products. Now, if you look at air freight products, the typical things that we talk about today are in terms of price or in capacity, availability, guaranteed space, and things like that, or elevated SLAs. Now, there is a need for us to look at how we can digitally enable these products. And by that, I mean, how do we infuse a certain level of digital capabilities into that product so that it becomes, let's say, taken to the customer, consumed by the customer in a very digital way. So that's one thing. Second is on how do we elevate our partnership model so that it is not just about how do we actually get into places where we can collaborate better with our partners, be it in the form of other carriers, or it can also be with other trade partners like customers and things like that. Third is in terms of handling, in terms of processes on the ground. How do we digitally enable and automate a lot of these processes and enrich them with digital tools, which allows them to have a much better service delivery and at the same time also improves the efficiency of operations? And if you flip over to the back end of the operations, you talk about the billing and accounting part of it, where also how do you take out a lot of manual processes in these things, dependency on paper-based operations and things like that, to improve the efficiency, improve accuracy, and also ultimately resulting in much better value like cash flows and things like that for all parties in the supply chain. And also, I think as we heard Austin talk about, one of the most critical parts of this entire supply chain is about regulatory compliance. As we all know, this industry is heavily focused on regulatory compliance, and there is a need for us to focus on that as well. And the ultimate goal of all of this being, how do we deliver more value to the customers themselves? So if you were to take this concept, what I thought is that instead of making this a theoretical kind of a presentation, I just picked 3 case studies from what we have done with our customers, where digital was employed to transform the way a certain operation was done. So I just picked 3 case studies which will help us to highlight these areas. So number one is about customer service. Now, typically, air cargo customer service has been very traditional, and I would, for want of a better word, use that word legacy. And this is based on a huge amount of manual work and also with a lot of paper-based operation. Now, what we did with some of our customers is to define a process which leverages on a known principle, which was e-arrival and e-freight, and converted that into a digital opportunity. And what was that opportunity? It was primarily, if you look at the process on the right-hand side, Basically, it starts with the entire process being left shifted into how customers can provide digital information now through various channels. It can be EDI, it can be through online portals, or through several other things. They can also upload a lot of the supporting documentation. And the number two is basically there is intelligence behind this, which kind of verifies this information before the customer turns up at the terminal, and it already pre-checks the shipment to say whether it is clear, and it can go straight into the terminal as such for physical acceptance. Now, this cuts down a huge amount of activity that goes on at the terminal as such. And the overall impact being that you reduce waiting time, you improve throughput through the terminal. As we know, traffic in the terminal is becoming a huge concern in many large airports facilities around the world. So this was one of the key things that we did. And some of the digital tools we employed also improved the customer service and experience overall, like having mobile apps, which helps in pre-declaration, reserving slots, even while the truck was in transit. And at the terminal, also look at advanced technologies like kiosks, where customers can do a lot of these self-service as well. So this is one area, like in customer service, where we impacted the overall experience, leveraging on digital as a core principle. And the second one was going back to what I said about premium products or specialized products which requires different kind of handling requirements. Now, if you look at the this diagram that you see here, on the left-hand side is more like your old process or traditional process, where you have your core processes, which is basically about all your standard cargo IQ style milestones, the standard milestones in the shipment life cycle. And there is a whole bunch of those add-on processes like measuring temperature or getting a battery check and those kind of things, for which there were a lot of paper-based quality processes that were integrated into the overall shipment life cycle. The trouble was that these two were completely disconnected. So we defined a new process. We created new digital tools which expanded the whole life cycle to include these non-digitized components as well. And that basically resulted in a more fully and all-encompassing kind of a view, where not only were these additional steps being captured automatically, it was also fully digitized, which basically meant that all of this data was now available for real-time checking with all kinds of SLAs and things like that. You're able to create a lot of reports, especially dashboard kind of reports, which can do checks and things like that. And also, it opens up an opportunity for us to automate a larger portion of this through, for example, integration with sensors for direct feed of data and things like that. So this is another example where digital has positively impacted the whole business as such. The third area is in the general principle of how you exchange data with different parties. So we have cases where you have airline to airline, GHA to airline, and customer to airline. And the whole idea was to develop standards and develop capabilities which would enable a higher and richer level of data sharing between these parties. And this was also accomplished using a lot of digital tools, specifically centered around APIs and this kind of things. Now, to put these key things in perspective, what I was talking about, if you were to look at your entire digital journey, to say, how do you measure success? What are the different steps that you can have in taking your digital journey and measuring your success, and how you should plan your roadmap? I think it boils down to three levels of capability that we should talk about. The first one is in designing digital processes, like I explained about your special cargo handling and your customer experience. It all starts with the process itself. The second is in terms of digital connectivity, that is being able to have a very seamless kind of connectivity with your partners, because as we all know, the cargo industry is a very interconnected kind of a industry where it cannot work without all different parties being in sync. So digital connectivity becomes a very, very important second step, so that whatever processes that you create, you can follow it through with your partners as well. And once you do these two, the third important part is how do you leverage all of this new data and insights that have opened up. And that's what I would put into this bucket called as digital intelligence, where you can start using all of this data for doing a lot more stuff like automation, forward planning, forecasting, and things like that. That's where the benefits of digital really start to kick in into the enterprise. Now, if I were to just summarize what I said till now, I think you should just take four key takeaways from all of this, right? I mean, the idea was not to just talk about those three use cases. I just wanted to talk about how digital can be made real for the industry as such. The first is that we need to absolutely continue the progress that air cargo has done through the pandemic. Second is that digital is absolutely here to stay. We need to capitalize on this opportunity, and we also need to create ways by which we can deliver more value to the business. Third is that digitalization is fundamentally has to be understood as a business strategy. It's not an IT project. So if you execute an integration with your partner and you treat it as an IT project, it's bound to not deliver the value that you expect it to. It has to fundamentally have a business-led strategy behind it. And the fourth is that there are technologies out there, and technology today is not the bottleneck. You've got so many of these offerings, IBS being one of them, where there is so much of things available on the cloud on a pay-per-use basis and things like that, which makes the whole approach to digital much more easier and far more easier to adopt. And before I turn them over to David again, just a little bit about us. So we are a company that focuses on the travel, transportation, logistics industries primarily. And we're a small company in terms of if you compare it with typical Indian software companies, or you would have we've got something like 3,500 employees, but we have a domain-centric view of this thing. And our market-leading solution, iCargo, today powers a lot of the very large enterprises that power the air cargo industry today. So we are in that sense serving the industry to the best we can. And I'm very keen to have more conversations on this. Please feel to reach out to me if you have further questions or if you want to chat about some of the things that we talked about today. So, and I would also like to part with saying that we also leverage a lot of whatever we talked about in terms of digitalization with some of the key initiatives which IATA are running, like, for example, the e-freight project, the e-cargo project, and e-available project, the One Record initiative, and many of the other things like DG Autocheck, where we have been working very closely with IATA as well. So we hope that that journey is continuing as well. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Radesh, for the insightful sharing. We will now move on to the first Q&A session. You're free to type in your questions in the Q&A panel or raise them verbally. Please use the raise hand button if you would like to speak. We'll turn on your microphone and video feature. But just to take note, to enable a better flow, we will give priority to people asking questions verbally. So probably I'll kick off the question. Radesh, you mentioned that digital connectivity is fundamental. So question is, how would you know that your partners are using which connectivity methods?
I think it's fundamentally, David, in today's world, really, there's so much option available, right? So today we work with customers who still depend on traditional EDI. Many of us who are already working with, their partners on new topics like Cargo XML. We have got customers also doing direct connect with API and the direct API-based connectivity. So it's a mixed bag. What we do as service providers is to provide the options to the customer, and also try to work with customers to convince people to move ahead in terms of the whole value chain and move towards more enabling technology like API as much as possible.
Right. Thank you. I think thanks Radish for that answer, and I think what we also try to create in IATA is a form of directory for people to find, you know, what kind of connectivity each of the partner have. I think we'll speak about more that later on, where Tahe, one of my colleagues, is going to speak on Epic, which actually essentially help you find out what are your partners' connectivity's capability. I think we'll speak more on that later on. So let's look for more questions from the floor. Really like to see people asking questions for Wasim and Radish, because they have two presented, and I hope to kind of close the loop for them for any questions that you might have. Right. It seems like your presentation is very clear. We don't have any questions. But I think what we'll do is, if there's any questions, the participant can always write to myself, and I'll direct them to either Wasim or Radish yourself. Thank you very much for the presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, David.
Thank you. Right. So coming up next.
Thanks a lot, David.
Thank you, Wasim. So coming up next, we will have David Wall, the Director of Safety and Cargo Compliance and Operation Solutions, to give you an overview of the IATA products and tools designed to improve your operations efficiency and regulatory compliance. David, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David Wee. And good afternoon, everyone. My name's David Wall, also part of the IATA team. My role here at IATA is Director of Cargo and Safety Operational Compliance Solutions, speaking to you this afternoon from Geneva, Switzerland. So just as I share my screen, we'll get started. I hope you can all see me, hear me, and see my slides okay.
We can.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes just talking about digitalizing IATA cargo products and tools, and the journey that we are on together with you and the rest of the industry as well. And I'd just like to also extend a warm welcome and thank you to both Wasim and Radish, and thank you very much for your presentations and the great work that we've just seen. So yeah, as we've heard, I mean, couldn't be more aligned with what has been said before. You know, we are absolutely on a journey, and digitalization goes far more than just improving efficiency. It's really about making sure that we are helping to facilitate compliance and driving safety improvements, as well as, of course, all of the efficiency gains and the customer experience that we need to create. And we've seen how cargo has played such an important role in the aviation sector during the pandemic, but it's also been, I think, a real eye-opener as well. Many of us who work in digitalization and in technology innovation have seen what is happening in so many industries across the planet right now with regard to cloudification and automation, and are thinking, why not us? Why are we not doing more? How can we do more? And how can we actually drive and help not only improve those and facilitate those compliance improvements, but also very much drive a more efficient and automated industry that is going to deliver business continuity to our customers and to the organizations that we are part of. So, this session is absolutely about the products and services, the tools that we have within IATA that are going to help drive digitalization. You're going to hear some of that from an operational compliance solution perspective. A few of my colleagues will also be speaking on Cargo IS. on Epic from Tahir, and also from TACT with Arnaud Moynier as well. But the daily dilemma is absolutely this for those of us involved in on-the-ground acceptance checks, taking cargo from one place to another, and the massively complex situations we find ourselves in a hyper-connected world, is that will that shipment that I'm carrying equal a fine? Is it going to equal a safety risk? Has it been sent correctly? What is it? Has it been assigned correctly, etc.? And that's a little bit that finger on the previous slide. You know, we're dealing with a lot of paper, and we're still dealing with a lot of paper. We're doing a lot to try and drive digitalization in the industry. You know, there's a lot of work you've already heard about that you experience on a daily basis, but there's so much more we can and need to do to achieve our macro objectives and make sure as well, not only for the reasons we've mentioned, but that we are playing our part in the world of technology and making sure that we are not in ourselves in a place where we are being unnecessarily disrupted from outside influences. The pandemic, again, has been a great example of how the organizations that are more digitally mature can better adapt to such huge and unexpected disruptive impacts compared to other organizations that maybe have been more, and industries that have been more paper driven, that have really struggled to recover. Now, some numbers in a hyper-connected world. We have 3 real examples here. We've just left out the actual names of the airlines and the freight forwarder, but you know, obviously we work with many member airlines, with many stakeholders across the industry. And you know, here are a few stats from one global airline who are interacting with 3,000 or more than 3,500 freight forwarders, over 20 trucking companies, 150 ground handling agents, 70 different custom authorities, and more than 40 postal authorities. That's a huge global player interacting with many different touch points. How on earth are they interacting and tracking what is coming through their organization, through the different touch points, through the different sectors of the supply chain? You know, the same for cargo specialist airline B. You know, 5,000 freight forwarders, 100 different airlines, 200 ground handlers, etc. So hugely intersected, hyper-connected, complex environments that data and information and digitalization has to play a role. And you can see there the example of the freight forwarder on the right. So what we do in cargo and safety operational compliance solutions is we create products that help facilitate that compliance and bring it with international legislation and standards while seeking to improve operational performance and reduce risks. Our standards, manuals, and regulations are the primary source of information for air transport standards, and we see it as doing our part to help keep the industry flying. And we really want to not only help help the industry recover, but really also redefine the future. Just a few of our standards and regulations that I'm sure many of you are familiar with: dangerous goods regulations, TACT, the live animals regulations, and many others. You can see there the hyperlink through to where you can find more information on those. But those standards play a critical role, as I mentioned. You know, just think of this scenario of sending something from point A to point B. Now, on average, there's 12 different stakeholders involved in that process. And the IATA standards and regulations are there to provide that connectivity in terms of sending that item from A to B. You can imagine that each of those stakeholders, they've got their own cargo, transport, logistics systems. And so they need to connect and exchange information between those different partners. It's a hugely complex environment, as we've said. And we need to be able to do that in order to drive and facilitate operational improvements and efficiencies, to facilitate the compliance, to have the right level of service impact, and make sure that what is done in a safe and secure manner, whilst driving business continuity through that process. But it doesn't stop there, just in terms of producing the standards. We want to make sure those standards are integrated and available and applied in the right way, and that you have the tools that you need to perform the tasks that you want to perform as well. So we work obviously with a huge range of different partners in that process. And we know, and many of you probably are familiar with this, the print manuals have their place. They are learned behaviors. People are trained on those print manuals, and these are procedures that have been there for many years. But we are absolutely seeing not only the need, but the adoption of those standards in a digital format. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. So we have, multi-platform reference manuals that are available in a digital format. But that's still a reference product. It's not necessarily applying the standard dynamically to the task at hand. And that's where, taking the information from those standards, bringing it together with data messaging and databases and integrating those into your cargo management systems, information systems, etc., can really start to change the discussion. And then ultimately bringing them together in solutions such as an Autocheck compliance system, which we'll talk about in a second. I think Radesh just mentioned dangerous goods Autocheck, for example. So, this is the journey, and it is a journey. We're not going to do this overnight. We have established procedures that we are working with, that we are looking to adapt to digital, and are adapting and adopting towards digital as well, taking the information, taking the data, taking the standard and applying it to the task at hand, so that the people involved in those processes can make far more informed decisions about the task that they are completing. So here we have really, the journey we're on through the IATA products on a page. We have our established print manuals. Those will continue to exist. We're constantly conducting research to understand, how the role our standards play in the facilities, the checks that are happening as well. And it comes back every time. Print is still very much an established approach, and we do not see the print going away in the short term. But equally, we as an industry need to drive a different behavior. We have to be more digital, not only for the reasons we mentioned with business continuity, but we've also got to make this an even more appealing place to work as well. And that requires more digitalization as well, more digital solutions and tools to facilitate people's work functions as well. So we have, as I mentioned, our digital publications available in a raft of different formats as well. You've got solutions like Tact Online, and we'll hear a little bit more from Arno shortly on Tact. Then you start to move into things like data messaging. And here we'll be talking about Epic a little bit later. But those XML messages and the uniformity, the understanding, the accuracy that is required, the standards around those messages being sent, etc., how they exist in Cargo XML. We've got solutions like LAR XML, IOSA XML as well. I mentioned briefly, taking the information from the standard, like the DGR E-list, for example, and integrating that into your systems can also bring the standard even more of a dynamic approach into the functions that are being performed, TAC data as well. And then when you come down to actual systems, we've got things like IATA net rates, IMX as well. But then finally moving on to Autocheck, and we will spend a little bit more time talking about Autocheck. This is where we really see the future of the standard, bringing together not only the standard as a live reference tool related to the task at hand and the shipment information at hand, but also very, very much combining it together with data and content, so that ultimately you have the best tools available, the best information available to help you make a compliance decision. So on the digital publication side, we've just launched the new digital publications platform. You can see the URL there. There's also a YouTube video link too. And this is a multi-platform system. where you can go in and look at the different publications that your organization or you individually subscribe to, as well as add other publications to it as well, giving you an online alternative to the print formats. Now, picks, shovels, and Autocheck. What do I mean by picks, shovels, and Autocheck? Well, picks and shovels might seem like a fairly standard commodity. However, it could well be that picks and shovels in the location that they were sent from, and indeed in the location where they are going to, are absolutely acceptable, but they are going through a certain point and they need to be handled a certain way. Or it could actually be that the final destination views picks and shovels and the application of those picks and shovels, maybe in a military context, or to a military customer, as a very different commodity to the person that had shipped them in the first place. So it's really important that all of that information is brought together and people have visibility as to what are the different rules and regulations as they go through the supply chain on their journey. And that's where things like DG Autocheck start to come into play. You know, you take the information in solutions like TACT, bring it together with Autocheck, and you have access to help facilitate compliance with the latest regulations that are always live. It gives you the information to be able to automate certain routine tasks. Is going to be eDVD ready, whether you're receiving an eDVD or actually using the system to create one, but equally then giving you the information you need to populate the NOTOC as well. And these systems, like DG Autocheck, are really there to support and facilitate business intelligence, business continuity, improve safety and compliance, and also really automate your operations in a far better way, give you the information, the data which you need as an operation to be able to go back and say to a shipper, look, for the last 3 shipments, you've sent us something incorrectly. Really go back and look at how you're doing this. This is how you need to do it. Or go and, you need to go and get trained. Or the next time, we're not going to accept it without you shipping it correctly in the first place. It also helps give you the intelligence you need. If you're constantly having an argument with one of your shippers, they're saying, yeah, you're just rejecting it because you make more money from rejecting it. You've actually got all of the information there in the system to say, look, this is why specifically, this is being rejected. And you can also benefit, as I said, from better acceptance checks, quality. It's consistent with the DGR in this particular instance, and that automation of facilitated regulatory compliance to help reduce the cost and the impact of regulatory fines. It's there to actually speed up and save time during the process checking process and give you more of a global management view with dashboards, etc. as well. So, if you're interested or you want a free trial or demonstration, here's the URL to go through, the email address to go through and do request one from us or contact me directly. So, as we've been saying through the first couple of presentations, this isn't just about recovering from this pandemic. This is about doing more. We have to do more as an industry to be more digital. We need to redefine the future, reimagine the future, create a far more sustainable, digitally mature industry. And that's the journey that we are all on together. We're very grateful for your partnership, and we want to do everything we can to support your digital journey. So thank you very much for your attention. And with that, I'll pass back to David.
Right. Thank you, David, for the invite to sharing. So I think we are going to have a change of the order of the presenter, because I think Philip is facing a bit of problem with his laptop. So coming up next, we will have Arnold Mia, our product manager, Tech Solutions, to explain to you the Tech Air Cargo Solutions designed to help industry beat regulatory compliance. Arnold, over to you, if you can take over the screen.
David, I think no, I don't see him.
Right.
If he's not available, I am happy to jump in.
Yeah, Tahin, please. I think it's fine if you can take over. That would be great.
Okay, good. Let me share my screen.
So let me give a quick introduction about Tahir. So Tahir Husnan, he's our product manager for Cargo Solution. So he's here to share with you, how Epic can actually change the industry and help the industry speed up the digital connectivity among different entity. Right. So Tahir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. And I think this is an excellent slot for me because both Radesh and David Wall, they talk about the digital connectivity. It is fundamental and how important it is. So David mentioned in his presentation that a simple shipment from point A to B on average had 12 different stakeholders. So each of these stakeholders have their own IT system, and they must connect with their business partner to exchange data electronically. Since the technical infrastructure of each stakeholder differ from other stakeholders, it is very important that they connect efficiently and cost effectively. Digital connectivity in itself is the big challenge. So my session is going to be focused on how Yata Epic can help you uh, to set up the digital connectivity with your business partners, irrespective of you are working with 5 business partners or 500 or 5,000. So I'm going to start with the classic example. We had a digital cargo conference in Geneva in September, and the session was about improving connectivity and digital connectivity. We invited Swiss World Cargo, Qatar Airways, Panalpina at that time, and the session was moderated by Descartes. And the panelists concluded that it could easily take up to 6 weeks to set up the digital connectivity between an airline and freight forwarders. And that was shocking for the 200 participants at that time. And even more surprising was uh, Panalpina and Qatar Airways, they mentioned that they know each other quite well. They have been working each other on different branches for many years, but still if a new branch is set up, it could take 6 weeks and sometime even more. So that prompted Yata to look into this digital connectivity domain and uh, facilitate industry. We started doing some research. So traditionally, digital connectivity was and the digital data exchange was only between the freight forwarders and the airlines and the interlines as well. And this was done through different CCSs. But over the years, the volume increased, the additional freight forwarders, airlines, and CCSs joined. But at the same time, we have seen a lot of new stakeholders that have become integral part of the digital supply chain. This include customs, trucking companies, postal authorities. So all of these are now very important players. So scope of digital connectivity has been expanding um, significantly. Uh, we at the moment we have around 40,000 plus freight forwarders who are exchanging data with 450 plus airlines and 23 CCSs. We have above 200 cargo handlers, 70 plus custom authority, and 20 plus trucking companies who are involved in digital data exchange. Although the postal authorities, they are already exchanging data, with the airlines, but with the upcoming EU ICS2, that is now going to be a key component, because airlines, those airlines who are part of this session, you probably are aware that effective 2023, airlines must file the consignment level data to the EU authorities if they are carrying mail on their flights. So this is the kind of scope of digital connectivity in terms of stakeholders. Radesh touched based on the digital industry. So for any single stakeholder to set up a digital connectivity with the business partners, there are basically three pillars. The first one is the identification and addressing. Second one is the connectivity, and third one is the messaging standards. So each stakeholder must have an identification that is recognized by its business partners, a connectivity method supported by its business partner directly or indirectly, and also have the messaging or data standard which should be understandable by all the parties in communication. So now at the moment in the industry, there are many organizations who are issuing IDs. IDs are non-permanent, keep on changing. If you change the company who has issued the ID, you end up changing, getting a new ID, and that ID need to be distributed with all your business partner. And David shared some examples. A global airline working with 5,000 freight forwarders. So imagine if airline change the ID, they need to uh, distribute that ID with the 500 uh, freight forwarders and all other partners. Same if a freight forwarder is working with 120 airlines, then that freight forwarder must distribute that ID connectivity method with all the business partners. So also in today's world, every company work with using multiple uh, connectivity methods, some based on their technical infrastructure support, SMTP, FTP, others who have big infrastructures, they have MQ series, or they have APIs, messaging standards. So quite a lot of things that need to be addressed. In our research, we have listed here some of the identification and addressing schemes used in the industry: TTY, PIMA, TPR. Then what are the different possible connectivity methods that could be used, and also the messaging standard, AIMP, XML, WCO standard, UPU standard, and of course the UNC effect standard. So if you are working with the business partner, your business partner might be using the PIMA address and using the FTP and using the cargo imp standard. You don't know. While your other business partner using a different ID scheme, different connectivity method, and a different messaging standard. So when it comes to the common to the digital connectivity, these are some of the common questions we receive. And the most common one is, how can I connect with my business partner? And especially for the companies who are new to the air cargo digital connectivity, it's a mystery for them. Um, does my partner support direct connectivity, or I have to go through a third party CCS? If third party CCS, which CCS? How do I know my partner is using which data standards? And if they know that my partner is using Cargo AIMP or Cargo XML, then they need to know which version of the message FWB or XFWB is being used. And there are many more questions, and answer to all these questions is only one, that is EPIC. It's a global database for maintaining and distributing air cargo stakeholder digital connectivity setups. In Epic, you can actually find your business partner, have visibility that your business partner is using which messaging standard, which connectivity methods, and who is the right contact. So instead of going through more slides, what I'm going to show you is a quick demo of Epic. It's a simple web portal. You need to have a login and password, and you will go into the search screen. And I want to know that how many airlines, uh, uh, I want to know my airline business partner. So, sorry, my system is a little bit slow. I will click on airline. If I know the name, I can type the name. Otherwise, I will say all the airlines who are using Epic. So if I search, I have these 37 airlines who are using Epic. And what I can do is I can click on any of the airline and find out more details. So let me see which, let's say Qatar Airways. If I click on Qatar Airways, I can see who is the contact person at Qatar Airways and who is the technical contact. So please note this data is maintained by the airline, freight forwarder, or whoever is using the Epic system, they maintain their data. I can have a look. Okay, the Qatar Airways is using these messaging standards, XFZB, XFWB, XFFM, and the cargo aim, FVR, and cargo imp messages. So complete detail with the message versions. And interestingly, if you see towards the end, these are the 8 connectivity methods supported by Qatar. And if we have a look, Qatar Airways said they are supporting traditional teletype messaging, and this is the address. Earlier in the presentation, Radesh mentioned they are working with many stakeholders. A lot of stakeholders are using traditional communication methods, while others, they are using very advanced. And in the industry where everyone has different technical infrastructure, you probably need to use both to support your business partner who are using traditional standards communication method. You need to have the traditional communication method. For modern, you need to have, and Qatar Airways is the classic example here, teletype, email, PIMA, and then APIs. So they have actually included, they are using the APIs and information is available here. So we saw in this example, Qatar Airways is supporting AIM, XML, APIs, and complete documentation is available. Same as many other airlines, Lufthansa, if we see contact persons, we can see, and also capabilities and the supported connectivity methods, including APIs, PIMA, email, teletype, everything. So not only the airlines, you can also look at the customs, for example. Nowadays, custom, Radesh mentioned, David mentioned, regulatory requirement is the key and compliance is the must. And actually, these regulatory requirements are playing a significant role in pushing the air cargo industry towards the digital data exchange and connectivity. So we have actually 14 authorities who are using Epic. And if we have a look, Transport Canada, so their contact person, same thing, their capabilities, what messages they support, and also connectivity method. So Transport Canada, they have mentioned they support digital connectivity through web service. And if we have a look at that link, so you will find complete information that how to submit your shipment. This is the Transport Canada website, official government website, where they have mentioned how you can connect with them using the web service. If there is any business rules, what are those business rules? Other than that, we also have quite a lot of other stakeholders in Epic. If we have a look at the CCS IT companies, we have around 20 companies, and in fact, from your region, if we talk specifically about your region, so it was the CCS Japan who has recently joined Epic, and if we have a look, their contact persons and their capabilities, all of these are listed in here. And of course, their connectivity method for the CCSs, it provides a complete separate process flow. There are other features of Epic as well. We don't have time to go through other features, but please see what you have just seen is one feature of Epic, which is the search feature. Epic also allows you to distribute your connectivity details with your business partner. You just also establish the partnerships and allow you to get the notification, so on and so forth. In the interest of time, I am not going through other features. So in my presentation, which you will find afterwards, David V is going to distribute you. You will see quite a lot of functionality is available in Epic, and also how it works. It's a centralized repository. It's a web portal which you have seen. We also offer you the API so that you can integrate this data with your cargo or cargo management system or transport logistics systems. A number of benefits. Some of the airlines and stakeholders who have been using it, they have mentioned the cost reduction. One airline has mentioned that using Epic, they could actually save significant cost, and they could save 40% time of a permanent resource. Time gain. So actually digital connectivity, which was 6 weeks, as Swiss mentioned, it could be now into minutes, improving efficiency, data quality, quite a lot of, and of course you can automate whole digital connectivity process using Epic API. So Epic adoption, so we have at the moment 37 airlines who are using, over 1,000 freight forwarders. We have 15 custom authorities. We have 3 ground handlers, 20 CCSs, IT companies, 5 international organizations. At the moment, for all these stakeholders, Epic is maintaining around 3,700 plus connectivity methods and 300 plus messaging capabilities of these stakeholders. So all these stakeholders who are part of Epic, they are actually listed here. And last but not the least, we have seen a trend in the global freight forwarders. All these global freight forwarders, they have now joined Epic. Thank you very much. David, over to you.
Thank you, Tahe, for the insightful sharing. So coming up next, we will have Anod Mamian, Product Manager Tech Solutions, to explain to you the tech air cargo solutions designed to help the industry meet regulatory compliance. Anod, we can't see you at the moment.
Yeah, the camera is loading. Should be okay in a second. Okay, that's perfect.
Looking good, looking good. Okay, so over to you.
Thank you, David. And good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for having us and having me today presenting. The screen is up, David?
The screen is up. It's looking good.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be presenting, so I'm Arnaud, the product manager for the Tactile Cargo solution. So I'll be focusing over the next 15-20 minutes on that topic specifically. Just for an introduction to what we do within the office here in Amsterdam and within the TACT team. So TACT is probably has been in the industry for a little bit over 45 years already. It has evolved from a must-have document and publication for the tariffs to a much broader scope that includes still the industry and airline tariff, but also a lot of cargo compliance information that is required to move cargo from A to B efficiently. What you will see in the presentation will echo a lot what David Wallace presented earlier today about the digital transformation of the industry when it comes to cargo compliance, and how TACT, its current solution and what we're working on, is in moving into that journey as well. And I started that journey over 3 years ago to fully transform. Due to the COVID crisis, or thanks to it, we are being able to accelerate the pace of the digital transformation with our customers, and we have seen very positive feedback from our customers worldwide. We're talking thousands of customers and thousands of users of the products when it comes to comparing the manual and non-digital solutions to a pure digital solution as it is today. And that's also what Radesh from the IBS team was mentioning earlier. There is an element of obviously change management to transform a manual process into a digital process. But I think the industry is ready for that. There's certainly a lot that has changed over the past 2 years due to COVID, out of necessity, but also because the technology now enable APIs and other a method of data transfer that allow for this digital transformation to really move forward at a much faster pace. So what we are about within the Tactile Cargo Solutions, our mission is to work towards operational integration in the air cargo industry. So we want whatever you have access to be operationally relevant for air cargo operation, whether you are a freight forwarder, an airline, a grounding agent, or any other stakeholder in the industry. And again, to echo what David was presenting earlier, what we have started to embark on over the past 3 years is the transformation of what TACT was into a new air cargo compliance solution that will eventually integrate the content of the current TACT online solution, the IATA Net Rate solution as well for rate distribution and quote and book, but also the other air cargo standards and third-party trade and compliance content necessary to give you a full picture of what you need to know when you are moving a shipment from A to B. So what do we cover today within the two solutions under the air cargo operational solutions? The first solution, IATA Net Rate, is about air cargo rate distribution, including contract rates. We're talking here about private rates distribution, so rates that no one else can see at our exchange between airlines, their GSAs, and the freight forwarders. Also, that solution supports quote and book with a selected number of airlines and keeps on growing as the need and the demand for digital quote and book grows into the market. Here as well, this is very important to think about the long-term strategy, which is the partnership also with TMS providers, airline IT providers, so that exchange of that data within the ecosystem is as efficient as possible. The Tact Online solution itself contains all the air cargo tariffs that are published under the guidance of the Cargo Tariff Conference, CTC. So they are also known as the IATA tariffs or TAC tariffs, but they are driven by the industry and the CTC. There is also obviously the tariffs from the different carriers that publish for regulatory purposes or for the pricing of specific commodities such as live animals, human remains, valuable vulnerables, and such. There is also within the solution air cargo compliance content. So here we're talking about the part of the industry standards that apply. For example, we're talking about e-freight information, CIV program information, how to complete an air bill properly, all the coding information necessary to understand special handling codes, ULD codes, and anything that a forwarder or any other operator needs to know. We're also talking about airline and state operator variations. So this is about their own rules that deviate or reinforce the existing standards. So for example, an airline can decide that for the transportation of certain live animals or for the transportation of human remains, additional rules apply or additional restrictions apply to certain type of commodities, and also what type of extra charges may be considered. We also integrate air cargo schedules in real time partnership with OAG so that any shipment search or information search will also return the right schedule. And we'll have a look at the end of this presentation into the solution itself to give you an example of how it looks on screen. During COVID, we introduced air cargo operational dashboards that are now transformed into a dashboard that will capture airline and state temporary embargoes and changes to their operation. It can also include information about adding capacity or removing capacity on certain trade lanes. And this information is updated on a daily basis and covering over 200 carriers at the moment. During COVID, this information was critical, and we were covering about 400 carriers because there was obviously a lack of air cargo capacity, and it was very difficult for forwarders and other stakeholders to find accurate information about which airlines are operating, which airlines have ceased operation or temporarily suspended operation, which airlines were offering passenger to cargo freighter service. So we are continuously managing those dashboards. They are not COVID related anymore. They just will stay as a support to our community. And this is also online and accessible for free. As part of TAC, we also cover anything related to the cargo tariff coordinating conference resolution, shown here on the slide. To cargo tariff resolution. So anything that governs the industry tariffs under the cargo tariff conference. So any type of rule that would apply will be basically fully explained within the resolutions. Last but not least, we have upcoming content on trade compliance with another partnership with the International Trade Center, ITC. So it's an organization which is governed by WTO, UNCTAD, and other international agencies. We have an MOU in place, and we will be able to integrate with Intact export and import documentary and packaging requirements for the movement of cargo, also driven by the harmonized system code, so the custom code for the commodities. So this should be up and running in a few weeks' time and will also bring additional value to our end users. Now, there is a lot of content within the solution, and we're often asked, what is it for me within TACT? How does it deliver value to me as an end user, as a customer? So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see the breakdown of the current customer base. Freight forwarders and airlines are our primary customers. Of course, but more and more ground handling agents, governments and regulators, as we expand the content of the solution, subscribe to the service as well. Ground handling agents make a lot of sense simply because they represent airlines and freight forwarders in their operations. And as more airlines also outsource their operation to ground handling agents and removing their own staff from certain location, it becomes very important that there is a uniform and consistent approach to compliance, and TACT provides this vehicle that if you roll out such a solution in your network, there will be consistency in the management of the air cargo shipments, and it can also easily be integrated within the current operational system on the ground. On the right-hand side, you have an overview of who we are talking to within each customer type. So freight forwarders mostly will talk to export and import air cargo operations, but also to responsible teams for compliance or business process owners for quality programs. And on the tariff and rate side, any team that work on requests for pricing, requests for quotation, RFPs, RFQs. On the airline side, airlines are important contributors to the content of TACT, and since its development, it keeps on growing. So we're happy to have welcomed recently Cebu Pacific as a participating airline to the program, Caribbean Airlines as well, and we have other airlines that will join the program and contribute their information. Within airlines, we're talking to revenue managers or pricing teams. When it comes to tariff and rates, we're also talking to business process owners, compliance, quality, and also teams in charge of digital transformation as well. And that's really a key point. And briefly to finish on that slide, when it comes to ground handling agents, we're looking really at station managers, people on the ground, and quality program manager that may be at the headquarter level. It's really about the usefulness of that information in an operational context. There is a shipment basically in front of me in the warehouse. If I go to TACT Online, what do I need to look for, and how do I read and interpret that information to make a decision to either move or block a shipment? Governments and regulators will also have an interest in looking into the information within TACT, a lot of time as contributors for their own country, so that we can display their state variations for the transportation of certain commodities, embargoes that are also in place for export, import, or transit. And they may also look into other countries or airlines information if they need to. So why would an organization choose to leverage a TACT air cargo solution? So each and every single air cargo shipment, whether you are a freight forwarder, an airline, or ground handling agent, you have to move according to standard operating procedures that would be defined internally. And we're here to contribute to those standard operating procedures by bringing in the industry standards, the trade regulations, the state and operator variations into that context, so that whatever SOP internally you're following, it will be also fed by the most updated content when it comes to compliance. There is also an element of pricing when it comes to the pricing of the shipment to the end customer, so the shipper or the importer. So tagged and net rates can serve also as your cost base to assess the margin or the selling rate that would apply for that particular shipment. There are also very important information to consider when it comes to the pricing of air cargo shipments, especially when it comes to commodities such as live animals or valuable and vulnerables. So some of the tag tariff, the base tag tariff for general cargo may or may not apply to live animals, for example. And if it's a live animal shipment, maybe there's a surcharge of 200% on the general cargo rate. So it's very important that whoever is using that pricing information understands also all the dependencies on the terms and conditions that the airline put forward and input with their pricing. And in a nutshell, there are no really other solution in the marketplace that can actually encompass and contain cargo compliance information at the global level, so covering about 220 countries, tariff and rates from hundreds of carriers, as well as facilitating the quote and book activity afterwards. We deliver content in different ways. The most popular and definitely the one which is the one we recommend every single time is web-based online. So this is the solution that is the most complete. That's also the solution which is updated in real time. So whenever we get a change from an airline when it comes to their tariff, they can self-publish information for immediate applicability, meaning applicability the next day. That's the bare minimum for tariff change. But when it comes to, for example, rules and temporary embargoes and other type of ARCHO content, it can really be updated in real time. So making sure that we deliver always the best content to our end users when they are looking to move a shipment. The API is available for the tagged tariff integration, so similar to the flat file indicated below. Those are for integration with your TMS system as a freight forwarder or the revenue accounting system as an airline to facilitate automated pricing of the master airway bill or automated invoicing to end customers. It can also be used for quote and book or also for a data analysis. And as Philip, which will come next, will talk more about the business intelligence side. What we do with tagged and net rates is the upstream, the distribution piece. There is CAS in between, and then comes in cargo, I guess. We still print one manual, the tax rules manual only, which is edited 3 times per year in February, June, and October. In 2021, we discontinued completely the tax tariff manual, which for those of you who may have bought them in the past are really bulky manuals. And this is really because of various factors that we stopped printing those manuals. The first one is the pace of change is so much that printing a manual 3 times per year versus an online solution which can incorporate changes from one day to the next, it made no more sense to issue those manuals. There was also the environmental cost for the print and the shipping of those manuals. And by the time you would have them with you on your desk, they would be already outdated. So it was really not a huge challenge to take that decision to discontinue the print. COVID happened also in 2020, and a few months into COVID, really 2-3 months after, there was the June 2021 edition of the tax tariff manual. We couldn't even print and ship because of all the restrictions in place at the time. So immediately, what we did back then was give everybody access to TACT Online to make sure operations wouldn't be disrupted by the lack of the manuals, and it proved to be really successful because a lot of customers really embraced the transformation here, using TACT Online, from working from home, working from the office. You know, it's web-based service. You can use a tablet, a laptop, any type of computer. You don't need to do any installation or key activation. And then we saw in 2022 the continuous trend of switch to online versus manual. So we will see that continuing over the coming years for sure, so that basically the TAC rules manual will remain probably for a few more years as a reference. But again, the primary vehicle of content is web-based. And I'll switch and give you a very quick demo of both TACT Online and IATA NetRate solution. I will not go in depth, but that will give you a feeling of what the solution look like and what they are about. So we'll start first with TACT Online. So TACT Online, again, has a lot of content. I'll give you just one example. You can navigate within TACT Online as you would within a manual, using basically the index and the different sections. But the most popular way and the best way really to leverage the solution is to simply put your shipment information. And let's say here, if we take the example of a shipment moving from Bangkok to Paris with Singapore Airlines, what would be the relevant information I need to know to be moving this shipment? The search can be refined. There are different additional filters that apply, but for today's demo, we'll keep it simple. The result that we get on screen will first display the applicable tariffs. So we can see here there are different tariffs that are published by the airline on that route with different rate levels. There is a general cargo rate, which is the first one, and you have some specific commodity rates, SCRs, which are displayed to inform the end users that those tariffs apply for those specific commodities. We actually don't see much of a difference in terms of the pricing. This is obviously the choice of the airline to display the information this way. We see for fish, we do have a difference here at plus 100 kilos compared to the other products. So you can see obviously results for any airline, including the industry tariffs, if you remove the filter from the airline. We have another tab for rules, so anything related to the compliance and the variations. What the system will do, it will look at the scope of your shipment and will display the information of the origin country, destination country, as well as the airline. So you can view first, let's say, the rules of the country of destination and figure out whether there are any restrictions that would apply to your shipment. And if we look at an example, let's say we're trying to move live animals from Bangkok to Paris. Those are the regulations that apply for live animals into France, transportation of cats and dogs, but it can be obviously any type of live animals there. We can see that the over restriction apply to plants, narcotics and drugs, as well as human remains. We have the same information at the for the country of origin, Thailand. So here we would be looking at more what type of export restrictions are applicable for my shipment. And there are certain apparently live animals that are not allowed for exports. We have restrictions for exporting religious images, objects of art that require a license. And we also have the information for Singapore Airline, which is the airline we have been looking at here, which will have additional information on restrictions. Again, if we look at the same section 2.3, and this is basically the airline additional rules that would apply and can be specific embargo on specific species and animals, or can be also more information about the pricing for live animals. And there are obviously a lot of information for Singapore Airlines here in their variations. We also publish what are called the cargo border management bulletins. So those bulletins relate to security and custom changes happening in the industry. We see here one of the latest is about the implementation of the system called ICS2 from next year, which basically is for preloading advanced cargo information PLACI requirements for any shipment going to or via an EU member state. So the reason why you see this information here is we are shipping to France, which is part of the European Union. Therefore, this regulation here would apply. So the cargo border management bulletins will also be filtered based on the geographic requirements of your shipment. And to conclude with the TACT Online overview, we'll have basically the schedules also displayed here in real time based on your shipment search, and see the different flight options out there. Here it's for Singapore Airlines only, and we see different options from Bangkok to Singapore and then onwards to Paris with different schedules. And if I were to remove the criteria of the airline here, I would have a full display of the different options with Thai Airways, with Air France, Qatar, Cathay, Gulf Air, and other airlines are listed here on the same route. Here again, different ways to filter the data. You can choose to look only at direct flights or transit flights and apply other filters. If we only select direct flights, reduces the number of results to only Thai Airways direct flight from Bangkok to Roissy Charles de Gaulle. So this is what TACT Online is doing. Again, there will be more content that will be added, including the trade compliance, and they will be part of the same set of results based on the shipment search. Let's go quick to IATA net rates. So this is a testing environment. So whatever information you see on screen is not actual data to make sure we stay within compliance, what we can show on screen. Just going to show you two different features of the solution. Net rates is separate from TACT because TACT is a public solution. So all the data that you see in TACT is available to everyone. Net rates is for the distribution of all rates which are non-public. So we're talking market rates that may not be equal to TACT tariff. We're talking promotional rates, contractual rates, and ad hoc rates and bookings. So let's have a quick look at the quote and book function. So a freight forwarder can come in here, create a quote request, and send that quote request to the airlines available on the platform at this time, regardless of what the technology of the airline is. It's really meant to support airlines going into digitalization of their quote and book processes. When a freight forwarder has placed a quote request for a specific shipment, here it's a shipment from London Heathrow to Amsterdam as an example. There will be pricing guidance, which is coming from our colleagues from CargoIS and their solution. So this pricing guidance will show over the last 3 months what was the average price on that route from London as a city to Amsterdam as a city, and give you an indication of the price fluctuation over time. And then below that, there will be multiple offers from different carriers with different routings, different pricing and services that will be presented to the freight forwarders. And the freight forwarder will be able to basically select the most adequate schedule for their shipment based on the time of arrival, departure, or pricing, and basically select, view the details. Here it's from IAG Cargo, view the flight plan, and place a booking. And it's, in that case, an instant booking that would be placed with the airline, the same way you would be able to place a similar quote and book via the airline website or any other digital medium. Again, this solution is designed to be accessible to all airlines, regardless of their technology at the moment. So an airline which doesn't have an API for quote and book may connect with us and the NetRate solution and be able to leverage a level of digital transformation already. So it's not exclusive, excluding any airline which is not yet at the stage of having an API available. And to finish up with that solution, there is also the same type of functionality you would have in TACT. You can see the look and feel is the same, to search and view for rates. So think of all the rate sheets, the Excel files, and the PDFs that the industry has been exchanging over the past 30, 40 years. It's still going on at the moment, sadly. And there is a level of transformation already, but there's still a lot of work. So NetRate is designed to receive data from airlines on a daily basis or in real time, depending on how we connect with carriers, and display those rates to the end users, mostly freight forwarders, to basically help them price, help them choose the right airline for their business. And we'll have rates for ULDs, for loose cargo, we'll have special cargo rates, we'll have surcharges. All of that information received from airline is transformed and then displayed on screen in a unified format. So there is no tempering or impact to the pricing itself. This solution is basically a vehicle to pass on the information and help standardize basically the display of it. So every rate on the platform will have a number of criteria and terms associated. If I randomly select this one for Qatar Airways from Allentown in the US to Abidjan in Ivory Coast, we see the pricing. We see also a flag because it's a dangerous goods rate. And we'll see a lot of terms, restrictions applicable to that specific rates, as little or as much as the airline needs to communicate. So all those terms that are usually at the bottom of a PDF or at the bottom of an Excel file are also included and transformed in a readable format for everybody to use. And there is an API, there is a capacity to extract that data and load it into a rates management system, or simply use online if that's the preferred method to view the information. And I just don't want to conclude on the NetRate solution that there is a lot of features to manage your rates as an airline or a GSA for your customer base. So NetRate is really a vehicle where that an airline can use to distribute to 100% of their existing customer base, plus any freight forwarder that they don't work with, which are already on NetRates as well. So you go even beyond your 100% customer base, depending on where you are and what's the adoption in that market. And it enables airlines to really terminate or discontinue manual distribution of rates via email, PDF, Excel files, putting everybody in BCC, and just like automate that process and focus on the growth of the revenue. Freight forwarders can also upload data into the solution for their own sake. So if an airline is not yet on NetRates, they can leverage the solution as well, load the data in, and get the same output of the information. No one else would see those rates. And any contractual rates, bilateral rates agreed between airlines and freight forwarders are 100% safe within the application. No other airline, no other freight forwarders can see your data. This is not a business intelligence product, so we're not deriving any price index or over metrics out of that data. This is where CargoWise comes in when looking back at historical information. So that concludes the presentation of both NetRates and Tact Online. That will be the end of my presentation as well. So just to conclude, basically those two solutions under the Tact Air Cargo Solutions umbrella will at some point in the future merge into one, as we have explained at the very beginning of the presentation. More and more, we have customers that have both in parallel. So progressively, we are aligning what's happening in the back end to be the same. And progressively, the front end will also merge into one single solution. Again, this is about rates, tariff, compliance information, so that the key question that we want to be able to answer is, I'm moving a shipment from point A to point B via point C. What do I need to know? What are the compliance requirements? What are the rates and tariff? What are the available flights and or capacity? And okay, how do I move to the next stage, which is placing a booking with the airline of my choice? So that's where we're going. That's what we are aiming to achieve over the coming months and years. And if you have any questions related to the products, you can visit tag.iata.org, which is the Tact Online website. And you can also reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to provide you with additional information. And thank you again for taking the time to listen and watch. David, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Arnaud, for the insightful sharing. So coming up next, we will have Philippe Siphonnet, Engagement Manager, Cargo IS, to share with you Cargo IS, the market intelligence tool to support your market analysis. Over to you, Philippe. We can't hear you, Philippe. You are muted.
Okay. Thank you, Arnaud, and thank you, David. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Philippe Siphonnet. I'm Engagement Manager, CargoWise, part of the CargoWise product management team based in Geneva. First, I'd just like to say a big thank you for inviting us to take part in this workshop. We think it's key to raise awareness about CargoWise, especially now because there's an enormous demand for accurate air cargo market intelligence. With all the chaos caused by the pandemic and the supply chain bottlenecks, just to give you a metric, we've been getting maybe 2 to 2.5 times, so 250% more inbound requests about CargoS, about acquiring CargoS data since before the pandemic versus before the pandemic. So what is CargoS? So CargoS is a market intelligence solution to support proper decisions. So for example, it's typically used by airlines and freight forwarders, but all stakeholders in the air cargo supply chain, even shippers, all the way down to shippers, use our data. For example, airlines for revenue management and pricing, and freight forwarders for procurement of of capacity, airports for their decision making when it comes to infrastructure development or in their presentations to airlines to attract additional cargo business. The foundation of CargoS is IATA's cargo account settlement system. So the data at the core of CargoS is based on CAS. So CAS is the only transactional versus reported data available on the market. So there are competing products, but none of them are based on the actual transactions like CAS. So we have CAS operations. IATA has CAS operations in over 100 markets. We provide data from 76 because we have some requirements that data from a given market be competitive. So there has to be at least 5 airlines transacting in CAS for a given market to be released in CargoS. But the coverage is substantial. So there are 207 active carriers transacting in CAS, over 10,000 freight forwarders, 1.5 million shipments every month, and over $32 billion are transacted annually. So we provide data for 76 countries export, and this is to the world. So each one of these countries, we provide export data to all countries, so not only the ones on this list. What is the CargoS data? So since it's based on, the foundation is based on CAS, and CAS being the transactional system for the contract of carriage, which is the master airway bill, the data is at the airport to airport level, at the master airway bill level. So there is no house airway bill included in CargoS. In 2016, we formed a working group of over 30 top carriers to discuss how we could improve CargoS and to design our roadmap for the future. Initially, this working group was supposed to be to do one enhancement of CargoS that we call CDD, which is adding a new data source into CargoS. However, the bonds in that community of airlines became really strong. So still today, we work with this working group, which is now a user group, to keep updating our roadmap and designing new features for CargoS to meet the needs, current needs and needs of the future. Now, more about CDD, which we started in 2016 and released in 2018. It was fully developed with the working group of over 30 airlines. And the working group told us they wanted 2 things primarily. There are a lot of different things, and a lot of them we're working on still today. But 2 things they wanted most was increased coverage, to get coverage of the data that's not in CAS, as well as information on commodities transported. So with their help, we developed CDD. So CDD adds the direct submissions of each airline that's participating with their full networks coverage. So each airline participating provides all their master airway bills for the whole network, which are then integrated into CargoS. And they do 2 things. They fill the gap, basically, for the transactions that are done outside of CAS. And they also add the commodity information when there is commodities transported to all transactions, including the ones in CAS, because that information is not in CAS. What's available in CargoS? The lowest granularity of time is monthly. It's possible to look at the data all the way down to the airport level. So it's possible to look at an airport to airport trade lane, the breakdown of airlines on that trade lane, or the breakdown of freight forwarders on that trade lane, and then go another level down into weight categories. So it's possible to break down from one airport to another airport, all the freight forwarders or all the airlines, and for each weight break, the number of shipments, the chargeable tonnage, weight charges, and other charges. So it's possible to calculate the rates per kilo or per pound. Now, for the information available, since we have submissions from carriers and we have the data, carrier-specific data in CAS and in the submissions provided by the airlines participating, we're able to show for each metric the market average as well as their own information for the weight, the number of shipments, the user's own either revenues or charges, depending on who's looking at it. And then again, the geographic level can be at any level, all the way down to airport level. So basically, this is what I was actually saying earlier, is that we keep on working with the user group that first developed CDD to keep working on our future releases, which is going to be examples are capacity data. We're also looking at providing weekly data instead of monthly data, and many other enhancements that are directly fed to us by the user group. So when I've talked about the commodity information available through CDD, this is what it looks like. This is an illustration of the commodity breakdown that we have available. There are 7 categories of commodities. So if we look at a market, we divide it into special cargo or general cargo. So special cargo are all the shipments that contain a specific commodity based on the special handling code, or a certain service is rendered. For example, an oversized shipment or express or so on. And then they're divided into 2 different breakdowns. The top one you see is the mid-level commodity breakdown, which is fully hierarchical, so there's no double counting. So with the working group of airlines, we designed the hierarchy and designed the breakdown and what corresponds to what in that breakdown. And then it's possible to break down each one of the categories. In this case, we can see perishable into different item level commodities, which are more granular. For example, hatching eggs, flowers, fish, meat, and so on. And for example, pharmaceutical can be broken down into temperature controlled and not temperature controlled pharmaceuticals. So each one of the categories is not only just a specific special handling code mapping from the master airway bill. It can also be a combination, like temperature controlled pharmaceuticals has to have a pharmaceutical code, PIL, plus, cool goods, COL, or control room temperature, so on. And below we have the service breakdown, which is not hierarchical. So one specific shipment can fall into several different service categories. This is particularly interesting to airports for when it comes to their projects or doing studies on infrastructure development. About who's participating, we have nearly 30 airlines sharing their data into CargoOS to be combined with CAS data for the release of CDD enhanced CargoOS. There's 12% additional tonnage in CDD globally. However, this is going to go up because there are a couple of these airlines in here, Emirates, American Airlines, and Delta, that we're going to integrate this summer that are not integrated yet. So we're going to see a nice boost in those numbers. And we're an active, we've been doing this engagement for CargoOS for ever since we started developing CDD in 2016. So we've developed relationships with all the important carriers. So we're in ongoing conversations with everybody that's not on board, that is using market intelligence and is a key stakeholder in the air cargo industry. How we deliver CargoS? It's delivered in 3 ways. There are entry-level products that are available in Excel. One of them is called the Market Focus Report. So this is something that small freight forwarders would use, where you have information from a given country with rates, chargeable weight, and charges from a given country to the top 25 destinations, as well as a ranking, so they can see where they stand from that country to the world versus their competitors. And this is a monthly report, and it's very, very well used. Even large carriers sometimes buy that product for their stations, add that product for their stations. We have the web tool, which is the cornerstone, which is the product that's the most common, because you can have in the web tool the full access to CargoIS in an easy to use interface. It sort of works like a data extraction wizard. It's extremely easy to use with no learning curve. So it's favored for mid-sized carriers, for example, or larger freight forwarders. And it's also the data is also available in what we call a business intelligence package, and that's flat files for integration into systems. So large carriers typically will subscribe to the business intelligence package, but sometimes all the other forms of products also, depending on how they use data. So as I mentioned, the web tool is very, very easy to use. We have online support, tutorials, videos, and it's easy to save, export reports, schedule reports, and so on. And we're going through a migration right now. It's going to make the web tool even better, with a lot more graphing capability, and it's and additional features. So we'll probably be able to talk about that soon in another workshop. Now, the number one key point in the value proposition of CargoS is the quality. The quality of the data is unsurpassed. And this is not just because it's transactional, it's because there's a lot of work put into cleansing it and testing it and making sure it's always delivered on time and it's complete and it's accurate. So we have 16-step QMS verifications before the data is released every month. So there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining CargoS's status as the most accurate air cargo market intelligence data available on the market. So as I mentioned, some of the stakeholders that use CargoS, here's an overview of the top ones. So we have airlines, freight forwarders, shippers. We have, customers like Apple, Samsung, Huawei, GSAs and airports. Even more recently, there's been a big push, and the Asia Pacific team actually has recently brought in airports of Thailand. The Europe team has brought in Basel, Tallinn, and another just in the last 2 months. So we're seeing a lot more interest from airports, aircraft manufacturers also. We pursue engagement with the sales teams, which are our partners in everything we do with the customers at several events. Just to finish, 13 of the top airlines get better results using CargoS. 13 of the 15 top freight forwarders also use CargoS for decision making. Here are just some examples of our customers. As I mentioned, the shippers and the airports are becoming much more prominent as a part of our customer base. Automobile manufacturers, cell phone manufacturers, and so on. So I'll close on that. So thank you very, very much for your time. It's much appreciated that we could take part. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or my colleague Shida anytime.
Thank you, Philip, for the insightful sharing. So we're going to move on to the last part of the seminar, which is the Q&A. So just a reminder, you're free to type in your questions in the Q&A panel or raise them verbally. Please use the raise hand button if you like to speak. We'll turn on your microphone and video feature. To enable a better flow, we will give priority to people asking questions verbally. So we are now going to open, the floor for questions.
Maybe David, this is Tahir. I will start. I have a question for Philip.
Mhm.
Please go ahead. Right.
So Philip, you mentioned some changes are going on. Are you planning to expand the scope of data in CDD to the mail shipments, the postal mail, or not?
Okay, so we already have a data release policy that includes how we would handle postal mail. It's already included in our data submission. Now, we technically could release it. It's just that there are not enough carriers in our participating carriers right now that are capable of giving us a good, clean, accurate postal data because it typically is not in their data warehouse. It's often in a separate system. So this is something we're really looking forward to doing in the future, and we're already set up for it. But it's going to be something that's going to be at first for select carriers that participate with mail because not everyone is capable.
Thank you.
We are just going to wait for another 10 seconds or so to see if there's any questions. If not, we'll go ahead and close the session. All right, seems like the presentations are very clear, but by all means, please feel free to send us the questions offline if you do have any after this webinar. So I'm going to go ahead very quickly to share my screen again. Right. I hope you enjoyed the presentations and that you have some takeaways. I think before I end this session, I would like to take this opportunity to share with you, our upcoming webinar on cargo excellence, which will happen in Q4 of this year, which we will be sharing the latest special cargo trends, standards. We will also talk about sustainability, a topic that is very new to all of us, but equally important. So we're looking to host it somewhere in October or November period. Do look out for it, right? And thank you very much for your time. We have come to the end of the webinar. So for those who have questions, you feel free to engage me through my email that is reflected on the screen, and I'll direct them to the subject matter experts accordingly. Thank you and goodbye.